Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. This is Friday, June 12th, and we're here to give our weekday coronavirus update for Westchester County. We're here at Peekskill City Hall in downtown Peekskill. We were here once before earlier during this period of time. And in a couple of minutes, we'll bring on the mayor of the city of Peekskill, Andre Rainey, who will talk a little bit about what's happening in this community. It's the northernmost city in Westchester County, and it has all of the joys and excitements of a city. It has some of the stresses and frustrations of a city, but we're trying very hard to partner with this wonderful community. It's got a beautiful river outside its front door and really a lot of terrific, resilient people here in Peekskill. We'll give you the numbers up front as we do. 34,175 cases of COVID positive tests have been made to date. That's an increase from yesterday of 69 positive cases. However, because of the number of people that have gone through the two-week period of time, the incubation of the disease has come and gone. We're now down to 826 active cases. A couple of days ago, we broke under the 900 mark, and we've been dropping for the last 8 weeks now since we hit our peak back in the first week of April, where we were in the vicinity of 12,000 active cases. So 826 active cases is progress. Our hospitalization numbers are down around 150 people now hospitalized, which is also good news. And we have tested 200,890 people in Westchester County. That's an amazing number when you consider that Westchester's population we estimate to be 1 million people. So with 200,000 tests, that's fully 20% of the county has been tested. And all of the public health professionals say that one of the key things that we have to do is test as many people as possible on COVID. So that is good news. The percentage of the people that we test that test positive for COVID is now down to 17%. That's a drop in half from where we were at the peak contagion when we were running 34% positive testing out of all people tested. So that means that out of the totality of Westchester County, 1 million people, 200,000 have been tested. 83% of them have been found negative, 17% positive. But out of that portion that are positive, the 34,175, only 826 are active cases. We had 2 fatalities overnight, which is one of the lower numbers we've had overnight. Still a tragedy when you lose even one person. We're to 1,402 fatalities since the contagion began the first week of March. We're here in Peekskill and all of the urban centers of Westchester County, the large cities of Yonkers, the mid-sized cities of Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, White Plains, and then Peekskill. Some of the larger villages, densely populated villages like Port Chester and Ossining Village, have had an increased amount of contagion, mostly because of the density of population. People live in closer quarters, they live in more multifamily buildings, and that has caused a greater concern. But at the same time, Peekskill has dealt with both the pandemic, dealing with the financial issues, dealing with the social justice issues, and the leader of the city of Peekskill is their dynamic young mayor, Andre Rainey. So Mayor Rainey, thank you for being with us here, and please share with the rest of Westchester County the progress of Peekskill.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say first thank you to the County Executive George Latimer for such great leadership. Your administration has been a great help as we get through this process. In the city of Peekskill, just like other cities, we've been facing a lot of hard challenges over the last few months due to this COVID-19 spread. But I will say the city of Peekskill has been facing this head on with the hands on the bull. So one of the first things I want to say is thank you to the leadership here, to the city manager. He's been phenomenal working with the city. Me and the city manager have made it a point to make sure every week we do an weekly update for everyone in the city of Peekskill so they can have an update on what's going on and how the city is handling this. We're finally in the phases of discussion for reopening, which is an exciting portion, but we do know and we want to recognize and remind people you still have to pay attention to social distancing. And of course, there's different protocols and policies that's going to be in place. There is no normal now. This is going to be a completely new normal for the city of Peekskill as it is elsewhere. We've been working with our businesses. We've been working with our different stakeholders in the city of Peekskill. I also want to give a special thanks to the New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital, as well as our Hudson River Healthcare right here in the downtown city of Peekskill. They've been encouraging testing. They've been doing testing, especially for their staff, and they've been working effortlessly with countless hours throughout the entire day and night over the course of the last 3 months. Specifically with our local workers and our DPW staff and our essential workers, they've been doing a phenomenal job consistently working, keeping the city clean, taking care of all litter issues and other things like that. Tax for the people in the community who've been worried about taxes, parking tickets and things like that. Everything has been suspended, but again, we are now looking to reopen. We've been also working with our Parks and Recreation and our Youth Bureau, as well as the school district, to create summer virtual programs for the children, just in case in emergency we're unable to open throughout this entire summer. So Looking towards working with our school district, our youth borough, as well as our parks and recreation. I also want to give a special thanks to the Planning and Zoning Board. They've been keeping the city of Peekskill open for business. Obviously, there's not any construction being done, but we are still passing different projects that are coming down the line. So once we do reopen, we can reopen successfully and proud. We're also one of the recipients of the $10 million DRI grant this past year. So some of the construction that's on hold will also begin once this pandemic is over. I do want to give a special thanks to all of the local churches who have come together. If I could leave with any message today, I definitely want to say again, thank you to County Executive George Latimer and his entire administration. If the entire world, especially in the city of Peekskill, but if the entire world can come together after this pandemic like we did during this pandemic, I don't think that we'll ever have any issues in this country. So George Latimer, I want to say thank you for welcoming me to speak. Thank you for coming back to Peekskill, and God bless you all.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks again to Mayor Rainey and the work that's being done in Peekskill. Every day we're inviting you to get to meet one of the mayors or town supervisors from across the county, from villages as well as cities. This is a county with lots of different municipalities and lots of different individuals with challenges, but all of us are working together, Republicans and Democrats, people from big and small communities, to try to deal with the pandemic, to deal with the financial issues, and also with the issues of social justice that have been put before us. We were here a little bit earlier today with State Senator Pete Harcum and County Legislator Colin Smith, and also members of the Peekskill Common Council, along with the mayor, to give out some masks that we received generously from Haynes Brands Incorporated, and also from the Greater New York Automobile Dealers Association. Those are being given here today to Peekskill for them to use in their distribution, some houses of worship and other targeted areas, and we know it's going to the right source. Also, we've provided them some bags that can be used. They have a little promotion for the census on it, and we're trying to get everybody to sign up for the census. You can do it with anything that was mailed to you. You can do it online at mycensus2020.gov. And certainly Peekskill and all the other communities of Westchester County, as they fill out the census, they will have a chance to get the greatest amount of result from the funding available that's out there, and then also representation in government. So a few announcements today. Do forgive me for the humid weather here. We are closing Croton Gorge Park again this weekend. We've closed it for the last 2 or 3 weekends. We keep it open during the day, but on the weekend, the volume has been very difficult for us to manage. And as I've said, whenever we talked about our recreational facilities, that we must have the ability to manage the demand in order for us to keep it open. If we can't manage the volume of people, then we can't be sure that we're stopping the spread of the virus. And in this particular case, there's parking issues at this site that could create a tragedy of a different sort. So we're going to keep it closed on the weekends through and including the 4th of July, which is just a few weeks away, weekends away. It will be open during the week, Croton Gorge Park. Beautiful setting, and if you can come at a time when everybody else in the world isn't there, then you'll see just what a beautiful sight it is, but not on Saturdays and Sundays for the next few weekends. We noted today that the governor announced a statewide program to address issues of social justice, racial justice that have been on our minds since the murder of George Floyd. And he's asked for creation in counties all across the state of task force that involves various stakeholders, both from the police professional side, members of the human rights community, the African-American community, clergy, justice. And we're proud to say we've already been in the process of doing that. If you saw my comments about the death of George Floyd, which is almost 2 weeks ago, we committed at that point in time to put together a group of individuals. We have identified almost all of them at this stage of the game. From the Peekskill community, Martin McDonald, who's a former president of the NAACP, has agreed to serve, and legislator Colin Smith has agreed to serve. We have legislators and a number of members of the clergy and a very diverse group. So we're very appreciative of the governor's announcement. It meshes completely with what our plans were already, and we hope that together we'll be able to put together a very solid plan. We intend to take action on the things that we see necessary as soon as we can, but we also know that the governor has tied these plans into funding from the state. And on most things, Westchester is able to show a professional approach on these issues, and we intend to do the same thing on this one as well. It's important, it's a critical issue, and we want to be able to address it forthrightly at the right time. I'll mention very briefly that, as I did before, we're looking forward to having a more detailed briefing on one of these settings on our finances for Westchester County. We have identified a significant revenue gap that came from the shutdown of the society. As the society is opening back up, we're starting to see some of those revenue numbers rise a little bit in sales tax and a couple of other areas, but we're a long way from being on plan and on budget. Some of the plans that we've made already, we think, will reduce the projected gap by a fairly significant amount. I think we've identified, to this point, we've put into action $20 million worth of actions, and we're identifying in the vicinity of another $48 million worth of actions. But the gap starts anywhere at $180 million, so we still have a ways to go. And we also need to see how the state is going to respond to closing their gap, and if some of the financial problems that they have will require them to pay us less reimbursements for things that we have otherwise budgeted as expected. All of this will be outlined as part of what we're going to do. We hope that will happen very shortly, and we'll certainly be transparent and share with you where we stand. We'll also be talking with our workforce because workforce actions are most likely going to be needed. We'd like to do them in a voluntary way rather than in a mandatory way, and we'll talk with the union leaders and dialogue with the Board of Legislators as we put those plans into place. We do need federal help, and I think it's not a matter of mismanaged budgets. A pandemic hit the United States of America, and it hit the New York metropolitan area particularly hard. The shutdown has been essential in reducing the spread. To have a fatality figure of 2 people in a night when you had 75 people in a night tells you that the plans that we've implemented are working. But those plans in working shut down the society, and the shutdown of society has cost us revenue. So we've tried to respond properly and intelligently to the pandemic, and I think the federal government has to look at it in the same way that they look at those states that have a hurricane hit them. When a hurricane hits a Floridian town or comes up the Gulf Coast into Texas, the rest of the country assists in the financial assistance to those communities. They didn't ask for the hurricane. There wasn't anything they did that encouraged the hurricane. The hurricane came, and the devastation and the loss of life and property was profound. And as New Yorkers, we have never saw fit to underfund other needs in the country, California wildfires, earthquakes, wherever they occur. So in this particular case, this pandemic has hit New York metropolitan area very hard. It has hit us hard in terms of revenue, and we hope that the members of Congress will understand that, and the President will understand that. We've been very fortunate to have representing us in the House of Representatives, Elliot Engel, Nita Lowey, and Sean Patrick Maloney. In the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, all of whom have gone to bat for municipal funding, city, town, village funding, and county funding, as well as state. And we hope that will help us get to the end of the year. We will end the year, and we will balance the budget, and we will go into 2021 when the time is right, and we'll present a budget that we hope will be a sound budget based on the principles that we have, and at the same time affordable. And all of those are the parts of the challenge that goes along with the pandemic as well. So with that, we appreciate the courtesy of the mayor. I'm going to make sure that I bring air conditioning with me wherever I go in the future, since I do tend to melt in the summertime. I'll ask Catherine Chaffee if we have any questions for members of the press remotely. Then I'll ask Martin Wilbur, who's with us here in person from the Examiner. He gets all the questions from here on in.
Regarding the reform, police reform package that was signed earlier by the governor, are you confident that the task force is addressing all of the issues that the governor outlined, and will they have to, rejigger a little bit what they're looking for?
Well, the governor's announcement today was the first signal that this is going to happen. As soon as I leave here, I'm going to be on a conference call with other county executives and the governor, so we'll get the specifics of what he envisions being done. We've already envisioned that we needed to look at all the policies and procedures in both Westchester County Police and then also in the way we train through the police academy all new recruits that may come into the county and bound for any police department, and then also the in-service training that we're also responsible for. And we were going to look at every single component of that. We were going to look around the country, determine best practices, and we were going to try to find ways to deal with issues that have been on the table. How do you de-escalate a situation? How do you get mental health professionals to be part of that initial response team so that it's not always a response of physicality, but a response that includes the mental health realities, because so many people have that. And we have to do all of this thoughtfully. We're not looking to rush to judgment with a particular piece of legislation or a particular action or function. A number of things have been identified. We had a meeting yesterday with the 2 co-chairs of our committee, Mayo Bartlett and Leroy Frazier. They're both African American. They're both lawyers by profession. They've both been prosecutors at various times in their career, and now they're both doing consulting work and trial defense in the case of Mayo Bartlett. So we think we've got 2 very capable professionals to lead the analysis of that, and we hope that'll be helpful. All of that, I think, is important because for those people who are protesting, they protest peacefully when they believe that government hears the concerns and responds. The specific response will be determined by what comes out of this, and we intend to announce very publicly the things that we intend to do. And we're going to keep in mind the role that our police play, because I'm not of the belief that every police officer is Derek Chauvin. I think what he did was a crime, and most of the police officers I've spoken to are very critical of what happened that day in Minneapolis. But there is a broader-based issue that has to be dealt with as well, and we want to address that broad-based issue. But we want to do it intelligently, and I hear people calling for, let's defund the police, let's do this. This is not the time to act irrationally. This is the time for rational reaction. We rely on police, fire, EMS, healthcare, first responders. We believe that they are professional. We also believe that if there's improvement that needs to be made, we make those improvements. We do it as cooperatively as we can. We implement it, and then we see the benefit that comes from that. And we do it intelligently, not out of emotion of the moment. And there are a lot of people who are rightfully angry, but the right response to that anger is solid, sound response. And it's important to us. It's important to everybody who lives here. I noticed that Deb Malone is with us here from the Chamber of Commerce from this Hudson Gateway area. It's important to the business community that they know that they too have a role to play in these things. And so we want to be thoughtful as we can. I think we will be. And the governor being able to lay out some specifics that he has as priorities, I'm sure will allow us to accommodate those priorities along with the ones that we've identified.
Just a quick follow-up. Are you confident that you have rank and file police across the board on board? Because there was that a couple days ago that strongly written letter by the president of the Westchester County Police Chiefs Association and others have expressed concern.
Right.
Some of the legislation,
Well, keep in mind the legislation that the state has done, state legislature has done. At the county level of government, our situation is less about what legislation we're going to pass and rather what kind of procedures that we can put in place. But sometimes it's a question of knowledge as well. Somebody came up to me and said, well, the county police should all have body cams. They do. The patrol officers for the county police, not officers, members, all have body cams already. They didn't know that. And they didn't know that we already have implicit bias training as part of our agenda. Now, can it be improved? Yes, it can. Can we do things that take us to another level that would be more appropriate, more professional? Yes, we can. I think if we approach this properly, we'll ultimately, you can't say today because you don't know what the proposals are on the table, but I think the men and women of the police force here in Westchester County are going to respond to a reasonable approach to this. And at the end of the day, what's most important? That we improve the nature of community policing between the police and between those in the minority community, particularly the African-American community. There are police chiefs that are committed to that. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago on Facebook Live with Ken Sylvester from Ossining, who made a very strong point of that. Charlie Rosabella from Portchester was with the march that was held over the weekend, and many of the police officers were there. So I think there is a basis for common ground, and that's what we have to find. There are voices out there on the far edges of politics that don't want common ground to be found. They want division. They want to say my side so that my side can beat your side. And I think the important thing is to try to find that common ground in the middle, do productive things that actually work, and that's what we're committed to. Very good. Thank you, Martin. In any event, thank you very much for watching. As always, this is a weekday function, so we'll see you again on Monday morning for a COVID conversation at 11 a.m. Obviously, if there's anything that important arises, we will communicate back through the press and to the public at large. But in the meantime, stay safe. Have a good weekend. Should be a good weekend to go out and enjoy some of those parks that we have kept open. I'm George Latimer, County Executive. Have a good day.